Alex had always considered himself incredibly lucky in this chaotic, unpredictable life, especially living in a sprawling metropolis like London. He had Emma, his stunning wife, tall with a cascade of chestnut hair she often gathered into a messy ponytail, and eyes the color of the English summer sky, capable of melting ice even on the chilliest days. They met 5 years ago at a company party in her marketing firm. Back then, Alex had just started as a manager at a large supermarket chain, while Emma was the bright, ambitious star of the advertising department. Since then, their life seemed picture-perfect. Alex's career was flourishing. He oversaw deliveries across Greater London, juggling logistics and supplier issues from dawn till dusk. Their spacious 2-bedroom flat was nestled in a new-build development on the outskirts of Croydon, with views stretching over the city's endless rooftops and a parking spot they paid a small fortune for, though at least they were spared the nightmare of tube delays. His relationship with his mother-in-law Margaret was surprisingly smooth. No classic mother-in-law from hell cliches here. Margaret was supportive, kept to herself, and even cracked jokes sometimes. "You young ones live at a pace we couldn't dream of back in the 80s, she'd say, her voice tinged with warmth. Margaret was in her mid-50s but looked as though time had passed her by. She maintained her trim figure with yoga and long walks through Hyde Park, resembling the elegant women from old British magazines like Good Housekeeping. Her beauty was austere, almost aristocratic, high cheekbones, dark eyes with a trace of sadness, and a smile that turned heads even in the crowded London underground. She worked as an accountant at a small company selling streaming equipment and lived in a modest flat in a faded council estate on the far side of town, where the walls had stories from the Thatcher era. Yet she always found time to drop by with homemade pies, apple or cabbage, and chat about the weather, soaring grocery prices, and the daily struggle of city life. In our day, things were simpler but tougher, she'd muse, pouring tea from a thermos she carried everywhere. Alex respected her. Their conversations flowed easily, respectful and free of awkwardness. He remembered their first meeting vividly. Emma had brought him to the family home for dinner, a cozy flat with carpets on the walls and childhood photos of Emma scattered about. Margaret had immediately sat him down, poured tea from an old samovar, and asked about his work. "You're in retail then? That's chaos eternal. Like our shop in the 90s, empty shelves and queues for bread," she said with a knowing smile. Alex had felt at home. Since then, they often talked about his hectic days managing warehouses and grumbling at delivery drivers, her routine with tax reports, and Emma's fiery personality. Sometimes, Alex thought Margaret's gaze lingered on him a little too long, especially when they had dinner together and Emma excused herself to wash the dishes. But he dismissed it as fatigue from endless meetings, supplier negotiations, and the city's never-ending traffic jams. Paranoia from overwork, he told himself as he drove home in his battered old Ford Fiesta. Emma had been begging him to upgrade to something more family-friendly, like a crossover SUV. Life followed a steady rhythm. Mornings with coffee and news, days in the office overlooking jammed motorways, evenings with Emma watching Netflix, dinner, and holiday plans. They even talked about having a baby in a year once things settled down. Everything changed on a rainy Friday evening when autumn in London was washing the streets with cold drizzle, the air heavy with the scent of wet asphalt, exhaust fumes, and decaying leaves from the nearby park. Alex had just returned from work. The day had been brutal. A vegetable delivery from Kent fell through due to a broken-down lorry, a shouting match with the regional director over lost millions, and mountains of paperwork forcing him to skip lunch. He felt like a squeezed lemon, craving only a hot shower and sleep. Emma called around 7. "Alex, I'll be late. Deadline on the new campaign. The boss is on my case with rewrites. Don't wait up, grab dinner without me, okay? Love you." Her voice was light, with a hint of apology but nothing suspicious. Just another meltdown at the marketing department, Alex thought, sighing. Nothing new in this London rat race where everyone worked themselves to the bone and weekends were rare. He decided not to bother with cooking and ordered a chicken shawarma through an app, the crispy flatbread, fresh veggies, and spicy sauce they loved on weekends, when they sat together on the balcony talking about trips. While waiting for the delivery, he collapsed on the sofa, flicked on the TV, and grabbed Emma's tablet to start a new detective series set in the city, something to distract him from work worries. The tablet was charging and lit up immediately. He tapped the messenger app to close it but paused when he saw an unread message from a Colin_Harris. A colleague, presumably, "Sweetheart, your smile killed me today at the meeting. When can I see you without those office suits? Alex's heart dropped like a stone. His hands trembled, fingers frozen on the screen. This had to be a mistake, a joke. Yet he couldn't stop. He plunged into the messages page after page, each one a slap in the face. Emma had been cheating on him for 6 months, maybe longer. There were sweet texts. Can't live without you, darling. You're my fire. Photos in lace lingerie, apparently sent from work trips. Bold confessions, you're better than home. So dull with him. Emojis, gifs, snapshots from hotels Emma had claimed were for conferences. Alex remembered her coming home late, smiling, telling tales of tedious client meetings. And he had believed her, cooked dinners, greeted her with flowers scavenged from the corner shop, even massaged her feet after a long day. Now it all felt like a cruel farce. He saw the dates. This started right after their 3rd anniversary trip to Brighton, and their vows of eternal love. Rage surged, mixed with hurt and shame. His life, built from scratch after moving from a small town to London, seemed to collapse in an instant. He worked hard so they'd have the flat, the car, the future plans, and she was with Colin. Who was this man anyway? A boss? A colleague? Tears welled up, but Alex clenched his fists, trying to hold himself together. He didn't call or confront Emma right away. He knew he'd lose control and say things worse than the truth. Instead, he shut the tablet, turned off the light, and sat in semi-darkness for nearly an hour, staring at the wall. Rain drummed on the window like a relentless headache, memories swirling in a storm. Their wedding 3 years ago in a small registry office, champagne with friends, honeymoon walks along the Brighton pier, hands entwined, baby plans whispered on the breeze, Emma's support when he nervously changed jobs, calling him her hero. How could she? He thought, clutching his temples. Were we ever happy? Or was I just a blind fool? Her late nights, flimsy excuses, the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume on her clothes. It all twisted into a tight knot in his chest, suffocating him. He thought of reaching for the vodka bottle in the cupboard but stopped himself. He needed to clear his head. A couple of hours later, just as he considered going to bed to escape the pain, the intercom buzzed. Margaret's face appeared on the screen, wet from the rain, umbrella in one hand, handbag slung over her shoulder. She'd come unannounced, which was odd. Usually she called ahead, especially in such weather. Alex, are you alone? Please let me in, I'm soaked. Her voice was slightly breathless, tinged with autumn croak, like she'd battled wind and puddles across town. Yeah, Emma's working late, he muttered, not looking up, and buzzed her in. She stepped inside, shaking raindrops from her coat onto the doormat, bringing the scent of wet leaves, dampness, and a faint vanilla perfume. One Alex always associated with home and comfort. He noticed Margaret looked different than usual. Instead of her usual sweater and jeans, she wore a figure-hugging dress, the deep blue of the night sky, accentuating her silhouette and making her look a decade younger. Her hair was down, slightly damp, makeup subtle but noticeable, lipstick and mascara. The scent was strong, swirling in the room like cheap wine at a party. She hung up her coat and scanned the flat as if sensing something off. The dim light, the cluttered table, his tense face. I just thought I'd drop by. Emma texted me earlier saying you'd be alone. Thought we could have some tea or a chat. The rain's awful, the tube's packed, buses stuck in traffic as usual. Not glad to see me? He asked dryly. Everything okay? She pressed, searching his face as if reading his thoughts through the shadows. Her dark, piercing eyes held him captive, stirring something uneasy inside. A strange mix of irritation and comfort. He couldn't hold it back anymore. Emma's cheating on me. With a colleague for 6 months at least. I saw the messages today. Margaret was silent for a moment, closing her eyes and exhaling like she'd just finished a long, exhausting shift. Sitting on the edge of the sofa, hands folded in her lap, she looked at him with sympathy. Are you sure? Tell me what happened, Alex. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Yes, I saw everything, texts, photos, the lot. Right there on her tablet. His voice cracked as he recounted the sweet nothings, the lies about work trips, how stupid he'd been to trust her. Margaret nodded, frowning. Her reaction shocked him. Not surprise or tears, but a weary resignation, as if she'd known for a while and was just waiting for the truth to come out. Oh, my poor boy. I suspected something. Emma's been strange, nervous, secretive lately. You need someone to help dull the pain, she said softly, stepping closer to place a hand on his shoulder. Her fingers brushed his sweater lightly, almost weightless. but the touch burned like electricity. Don't bottle it up, Alex. The morning after Emma's stormy departure, London was wrapped in a thick damp fog that clung to the streets like a shroud. Alex sat by the window of his flat in Croydon, nursing a lukewarm cup of tea, his gaze fixed on the hazy skyline. The city buzzed obliviously below, utterly unaware of the personal chaos unfolding in one of its countless high-rise apartments. His reflection in the glass stared back at him, a man hollowed out by betrayal, yet strangely unburdened, like a ship finally casting off its anchor. Margaret had left quietly before dawn, her goodbye a whispered promise to call later. But Alex knew their fragile alliance was more complicated than mere words. He replayed the previous night's confessions and forbidden touches over and over in his mind, the memory both thrilling and tormenting. The weight of Emma's deceit had fractured something deep within him, and Margaret's unexpected presence had cracked the last wall of his restraint. He looked down at the empty chair beside him, imagining Emma's usual place at the kitchen table, now cold and deserted. The curtains he had drawn the night before remained closed, casting the room in a muted gray light, fitting for his mood. His phone vibrated on the table. A message from his boss reminding him of an urgent meeting. Work was relentless, indifferent to the personal hell he was enduring. Alex sighed, drained but unwilling to surrender to despair. He forced himself to dress jeans, a crisp white shirt, and a navy blazer that felt stiff and unfamiliar after so many days of casual wear. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair, caught his reflection again, and winced at the tired eyes staring back. As he locked the flat door behind him, the chill autumn air hit his face, a brisk reminder that London's weather was as unforgiving as his recent emotions. He navigated through the gray streets, the dampness seeping through his coat, the usual hum of city life strangely muted. To the office, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Alex settled into his desk. The incessant ringing of phones, the clacking of keyboards, and the occasional murmur of colleagues felt like a distant storm. He tried to focus on the mountain of reports and endless emails, but his mind kept drifting back to last night. The stolen kisses, the whispered promises, the dangerous line he had crossed with Margaret during lunch. He avoided the canteen, instead choosing a quiet cafe on a side street near London Bridge. The place was a cozy refuge with mismatched furniture, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee, and soft jazz playing in the background. He ordered a black coffee and a sandwich, trying to drown his thoughts in the mundane. His phone buzzed again, this time a message from Margaret. Coffee later? We need to talk. He hesitated. Part of him wanted to run from the tangled mess they had created, but another part, a darker, more desperate part, yearned for her presence, for the warmth and understanding she provided. Twisted though it was. He typed back a quick yes, and set the phone down, the weight of what lay ahead pressing heavily on his chest. Later that afternoon, they met at a small, dimly lit bistro tucked away in a quiet corner of Soho. Margaret arrived first, dressed impeccably in a tailored emerald green dress that hugged her figure just enough to hint at youthful curves beneath the mature elegance. Her dark hair was styled in loose waves that framed her face, and a subtle touch of ruby lipstick gave her lips a sultry glow. She wore delicate gold earrings that caught the light as she moved, and the scent of her perfume, a blend of vanilla and sandalwood, lingered in the air long after she Saturday. Alex entered moments later, heart pounding as he spotted her. The sight of her stirred a confusing mix of desire and guilt. She smiled softly, a knowing, almost mischievous smile that contrasted with the tension in the room. They ordered drinks, red wine for Margaret, a whiskey neat for Alex, and settled into a shadowed booth in the back. Their conversation started cautiously, circling around banalities. The weather, the city's endless traffic woes, the latest office gossip. But beneath the surface, unspoken words crackled like static electricity. Finally, Margaret broke the silence. Alex, what we did, it was reckless. Dangerous. But sometimes the heart doesn't listen to reason. He looked into her eyes, dark pools reflecting his own turmoil. I don't know what to think anymore. Emma's betrayal shattered me, but it feels like a betrayal too. But to whom? To her? To ourselves? Margaret reached out, her fingers brushing his hand with a tenderness that made his breath catch. To the world, maybe. But not to me. I've spent so many years hiding behind rules, behind the pain of my own past. You made me feel alive again. Alex, he swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling deep inside. What happens now? Can we pretend this never happened? Go back to the way things were? She shook her head slowly. No. There's no going back. We're tangled in a web now, and every thread pulls tighter. A waiter interrupted briefly with their orders, but the moment had shifted irreversibly as the evening deepened. Their conversation grew more intimate, confessions spilling out like spilled wine. Margaret spoke of her loneliness after her divorce, the empty nights filled with memories of what might have been. Alex shared his fear of losing everything he had worked for, the crushing weight of suspicion and heartbreak. Their hands found each other again, fingers entwining across the table. The world outside the bistro faded into a blur of rain-slicked streets and shimmering lights. Just as the clock struck 10, Margaret's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her expression tightening. It's Emma. Alex's heart skipped. The uninvited intrusion of the past into their fragile present sent a shiver down his spine. Margaret stood abruptly, voice low but firm. I have to take this. She stepped outside, phone pressed to her ear, leaving Alex alone with his swirling thoughts and the empty glass before him. He sat back, the city's pulse echoing in his ears, unaware that outside, beneath the pale glow of a street lamp, a shadowy figure watched the bistro's entrance with intent eyes, a silent observer to a dangerous game unfolding in the heart of London. And somewhere, in the depths of a locked drawer in Emma's flat, a new message blinked on her phone, waiting to be read. The truth was far from over. The following morning, London awoke beneath a steel-gray sky, the kind that promised rain but never quite delivered. Alex's flat felt unusually cold, the silence within its walls heavier than any storm outside. The previous night's encounter with Margaret lingered in his mind, a heady mix of forbidden passion and raw vulnerability that had both shattered and soothed him. His phone lay on the kitchen counter, screen cracked slightly from an earlier careless drop. Messages blinked unanswered, the most recent from Margaret. * We need to be careful. Emma's not going to let this go. * Alex's thumb hovered over the reply button, but he couldn't find the words. Dressing carefully in a muted gray suit, his attempt to armor himself for the battles ahead, he left the flat, the familiar creak of the door echoing in the quiet hallway. Outside, the city thrummed with life, commuters hurrying beneath umbrellas, their faces etched with the collective weariness of urban survival. To the office, whispers floated through the corridors like ghosts. Colleagues exchanged glances, some sympathetic, others tinged with curiosity. Rumors had begun to swirl, Emma's sudden absence, the tense atmosphere between Alex and his wife's family. But no one dared approach him directly. Alex buried himself in spreadsheets and supplier calls, each task a distraction from the storm brewing in his personal life. The mid-afternoon brought a surprise visitor, Margaret, standing hesitantly at the entrance of the office, her emerald dress now paired with a tailored black coat. Her eyes were tired but resolute. Alex, she said softly, we need to talk. Somewhere private. He nodded, following her to a quiet conference room. Once inside, she closed the door and leaned against the polished table. Emma called me last night, Margaret admitted, voice barely above a whisper. She knows about us. She's furious, threatening to expose everything. Alex's jaw tightened. She thinks she can control the narrative, but this isn't just about her anymore. It's about what we do next. Margaret's gaze held his, steady and unflinching. We're playing with fire, Alex. But maybe this fire will burn away the lies. Their conversation was cut short as a message popped up on Margaret's phone. A photo of Emma standing in the rain outside Alex's flat, umbrella in hand, eyes blazing with betrayal and determination. Looks like she's coming for a confrontation, Margaret murmured, slipping the phone into her coat pocket. Back at the flat, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The air smelled faintly of rain and spilled wine from the previous night, mingling with the sharp scent of stale cigarettes. Alex's weak indulgence in moments of despair. The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent, slicing through the silence. Alex opened the door to find Emma, rainwater dripping from her coat, eyes wild with a cocktail of anger and pain. We need to talk, she said, voice trembling but fierce. Inside, the three of them faced each other, a twisted tableau of love, betrayal and shattered trust. The room seemed to shrink as accusations flew, old wounds reopened, and new scars carved themselves into the fabric of their lives. Margaret's usual poise cracked, revealing a fierce protectiveness over Alex, while Emma's vulnerability surfaced beneath her rage, desperate to reclaim a love slipping through her fingers. Words turned to silence as the night deepened, each of them grappling with the choices they'd made and the uncertain road ahead. Outside, the city's lights blurred through rain. Streaked windows, a silent witness to a family unraveling, and a secret yet to be revealed lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to ignite the next chapter of their story. The early morning fog clung stubbornly to the streets of Croydon, muffling the usual city sounds into a distant hum. Inside the flat, the atmosphere was taut with unspoken tension, as if the very walls were holding their breath. The previous night's confrontation had left raw wounds, but today promised a reckoning far deeper than anyone anticipated. Alex sat rigidly at the kitchen table, swirling a cup of black coffee absent-mindedly. His suit was rumpled, tie loosened, and his eyes betrayed the sleepless hours he'd endured. Across from him, Margaret leaned back in her chair, the emerald dress now hidden beneath a heavy wool coat, but the fire in her dark eyes was undiminished. Emma was nowhere to be seen, and the silence gnawed at them both. Suddenly the phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Alex frowned and picked up. *, we know everything. You think you're clever, but secrets have a way of coming out. Be careful who you trust. C. *, his heart leapt into his throat. Who was C? Colin. The colleague. The man tangled in Emma's betrayal? Margaret's gaze sharpened. This just got darker. Before Alex could respond, the doorbell rang again. Sharper this time, more demanding. He opened the door cautiously to find a courier holding a small, unmarked package. Alex signed for it, eyes narrowing with suspicion. Back inside, he carefully unwrapped the box. Inside lay a bundle of photographs, scandalous, intimate images of Emma and Colin in various locations around London, each time-stamped and meticulously documented. But at the bottom was a folded envelope, addressed to Alex in elegant handwriting. With trembling fingers, Alex opened the letter. The message inside was chilling. *, you think you're the only one with secrets. Look closer at your precious Margaret. The past she hides will destroy you both. Trust no one. *, a shiver ran down Alex's spine. He looked up to see Margaret watching him closely, her usual calm replaced by something darker. An unreadable expression that sent a stab of doubt through his heart. Who sent this? He demanded. Margaret's voice was low, almost a whisper. I don't know. But it's a warning. Someone wants to pull us apart. Alex's mind raced. Was this the beginning of a war he never wanted? Between Emma's lies, Margaret's secrets, and the shadowy figure watching from the sidelines, he realized his life was no longer just about betrayal and heartbreak. It was about survival. The city outside carried on, indifferent and sprawling, but inside the flat, a new game had begun. And the stakes were higher than Alex could have ever imagined. As the rain began to patter against the window, Alex's phone buzzed again. A single message, stark against the dark screen. *, meet me tonight. All will be revealed. Trust no one. C. *, he stared at the message, the weight of the unknown pressing down. The night held promises of truths that could shatter everything, or finally set him free. The night settled over London like a velvet cloak, thick with mist and the faint scent of rain on cobblestones. Alex paced the length of his living room, the envelope's warning whispering in his mind, each step echoing his rising anxiety. The city outside was a blur of dim street lamps and distant car horns, but inside the flat, shadows grew long, swallowing the space between him and the truth he feared. Margaret sat silently on the edge of the sofa, her fingers nervously tracing the delicate gold bracelet on her wrist, the only piece of jewelry she never took off. Her dark eyes, usually so composed, flickered with unease, betraying a turmoil she refused to voice. The emerald dress she'd worn at the cafe was now folded neatly on a chair, replaced by a loose cashmere sweater and tailored trousers, yet the tension in her posture was palpable. The clock ticked past 9 when Alex finally broke the silence. We have to meet this C, he said, voice low but steady. Tonight. Somewhere public. Somewhere we can't be ambushed. Margaret nodded slowly, the fight in her returning. Agreed. I'll drive. They agreed on a small late-night pub in Shoreditch, a place known for its dim lighting and eclectic clientele, the kind of place where secrets hid in plain sight. The journey there felt endless. The rain had resumed, gentle at first, then steadily growing into a drumming downpour against the car windows. Outside, the city's neon signs flickered, their reflections dancing on the wet streets like ghostly fireflies. Inside the pub, the air was thick with the smell of stale beer and tobacco, conversations muffled into an indistinct hum. Alex and Margaret took seats near the back, eyes scanning every shadow, every face. Minutes dragged by until a figure approached. A man in his late 30s, wearing a weather-beaten leather jacket and a crooked smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. He slid into the seat opposite them without invitation. Alex. Margaret. Or should I say the lovers tangled in a web of lies? His voice was smooth but laced with venom. Alex's jaw tightened. Who are you? What do you want? The man chuckled darkly. Names are overrated. Call me Carter. I'm the one who's been watching, pulling strings. And I assure you the game is far from over. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Why? Why target us? Carter leaned forward, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Because your perfect little family is a house of cards. And I have the wind. Alex swallowed hard. What wind? Your dear Margaret isn't as innocent as she seems. There are things in her past, things that could ruin you both. Margaret's face paled. But Carter was relentless. I have proof. Photos, documents, whispers from those who knew her before she met your family. You think you know her, Alex? You don't. Alex felt the room tilt. What do you want from us? Carter smiled, a predator's grin. I want chaos. I want to watch your world crumble. But I'm feeling generous. There's a way out, a deal. Help me take down Emma, and I'll keep Margaret's past buried. Refuse and everything you cherish will burn. The weight of his words pressed down like a suffocating fog. Alex glanced at Margaret, searching for answers in her conflicted gaze. Margaret's voice was steady but laced with pain. What do you want me to do? Carter's eyes gleamed. Simple. Feed me information. Turn your daughter's betrayal into a spectacle. And keep Alex on a leash. Alex's mind screamed against the treachery. The impossible choice laid bare before him. Trust no one. Betrayed by his wife. Now blackmailed by a stranger wielding secrets like knives. The night deepened, and with each passing moment, Alex realized that in London's tangled web of lies, the only certainty was that the true enemy might be closer than he ever imagined. Outside, the rain washed the streets clean, but inside, the past and present collided in a storm that promised no mercy. And as Carter's silhouette melted back into the shadows, a new chapter of deception and desire began. One that would push Alex to the edge of everything he thought he knew and beyond.